This is ContactTalkRadio.com, consciousness in action, and you are taking action into your consciousness by tuning into Contact Talk Radio.
And on TuneIn.com, Hing.fm, and UpSnap Mobile.
Contact Talk Radio. Welcome to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. Joan and Janet are subtle energy empaths who navigate consciousness. Their passion is to support you in your evolution. As consciousness, we are all one. One mind, one heart, free of all limitations. Experience this reality with us and discover how it can make a difference in your daily living. Join us in a state of grace as we explore, with warmth and humor, this thing we call life. Now, here are Joan Newcomb and Janet Barrett.
Welcome to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. We're your co-hosts, Joan Newcomb, coming to you from Tacoma, Washington, and my partner, Janet Barrett, is coming to you from Portland, Oregon.
Welcome, everyone. How nice to be with you again.
We have a very interesting show today. It's all about
They're always
consciousness
interesting.
and reopening boxes. Some are fascinating, some are amusing, and this one's interesting. So today we're discussing the dynamics of opening up a box, whether it's an internal box or it's, you're moved and you're opening up boxes. We put our stuff in boxes and then we take them with us. So stay tuned, because we're going to be exploring what happens when, as consciousness at play, we open up and reorganize our lives.
Lots of people are feeling shifts and lots of boxes opening. So what we're going to do right now is issue you an invitation to go deeper with us, to connect with us beyond the show. And you can do that at our website, www.consciousconversationswithjoanandjanet.com. And there you're going to find out all kinds of information. And the list goes on and on. So Joan, take it away. Tell them what they get.
Well, there's all sorts of information on our website. As Janet said, it's Conscious Conversations with joanandjanet.com. You can find all our podcasts there. So if you want to catch up on shows you may have missed, or you want to re-listen to your favorites, they are there. You can also read the blogs that we each put out. Janet and I each write a weekly blog. Very interesting stuff. Very along the lines of the things that we talk about on the show. We also hold meetups. Janet has hers in Portland on Tuesday evenings and Thursday afternoons, and I hold mine around the Puget Sound. My next one is in Tacoma on Saturday, September 16th, so it's this Saturday. It's at the Anna Wheelock Library in North Tacoma at 3:30 in the North End on Saturday, September 16th. You can also find out about our sessions. Janet has individual sessions by Skype and by phone. She contacts people all around the world, or they contact her. And I have coaching programs that are 6, 8, and 12 weeks long, and you can find out more about that on my website, joan-newcomb.com. Now, if you have other social media leanings, you can find us on Facebook. There's a link to the show on the website, but it is Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. Isn't that a surprise? And then I'm on Facebook, Joan Newcomb, and Janet is on Facebook, Janet Barrett. And so you can join the group and join the fun there. You can also follow us on Twitter. The show is at Joan and Janet on Twitter. I am on Twitter at Joan Newcomb. And Janet is on Twitter.
Yeah. Well,
Janet
not a lot, but I'm on it. Yeah.
Janet and Beyond. So whatever your preferred. And actually, if you like YouTube, we also have archived shows on YouTube. So you can just lean back and binge listen to the show on YouTube as well. Just put on the playlist and bliss out to that wonderful heart space. And I have a couple of quick announcements here too. I have a booth at the Emerald Spiral Expo, which is in Kent. That is at the Kent Commons in Kent, and it is coming up on Saturday, September the 24th. It goes from like 9 to 5, but I'm also going to be talking about Beyond the Secret at 2 o'clock. I think it is in the afternoon is my talk. So find out techniques for navigating consciousness beyond the secret. And then I don't always have, but I have space available in my private coaching program that I mentioned earlier. It's 12 weeks to transformation. I work one-on-one with people, and I do this one at a time because it's very individual. It's personalized for you, and it's a pretty intense space to hold for you, but I hold it strongly for 12 weeks for you to completely transform your life and come away with a sense of mastery as consciousness in this world.
And Joan, we do want to mention that next Thursday night, September 14th, the third Thursday of the month, is our free conference call. And that's at 7 p.m. Pacific and 9 p.m., well, I guess it's 10 p.m. Eastern. And we take that hour with a close, intimate group of who's ever on that phone line, and we do exactly what we do here, but we do it on a very personal level. So what's going on with you and what we're noticing in the group, and we play. And it's can be a remarkable experience. The people that are on the line and sharing, and you feel the power of the dynamics that happen when you're reflecting back and forth in hearts. So don't forget that. You can contact us at Conscious with Joan and Janet at Gmail and get signed up that way and get the numbers. So always want to put a plug in for that. Now, we're going to talk about our subject, right?
Yes.
Opening up boxes. Ooh, everybody always loves to open up a box. Joan, I don't know anyone who doesn't like to open up like a present.
Well, a present, but we're not always feeling like they are presents. I mean, really, sometimes they're boxes in your basement you haven't looked at for 4 years. I don't know if I'm going to get in there.
Exactly. And, it's opening, consciousness is all about opportunities and potential. And so what would it be like to realize and be in the presence when you have to open up that box, maybe that box that's been sitting there for a long time, and realizing that who you were when you packed it, or what was packed for you, or you picked it up, really maybe it's not who you are right in this moment. And that's what we're looking at. And whether it's a metaphorical interior box, or whether it's, your furnishings or something from your father's house and all those obligations and whatever that box represents, you can do it from a place of I want to use the word lightheartedness. And that's exactly what consciousness feels like to me, is that lighthearted. There is no story there. There is only potential. So that's what we want to talk about today. What did you open up?
I opened up my mute button. For me, this is both internal and external. It's metaphorical and it's actual, because I just moved, and it required me to go down into my basement and open up boxes that had gotten put down there 3.5 years ago when my father was dying. So there were things that I did not know were down there. There were things I didn't want to go into at first. And it was very interesting going down there and being in present time, being in the present moment. And it became fascinating. It became interesting. I was able to sort through things. I actually let go of some things. And then there were some things that got let go of, like I cannot find the right shoe of this really nice brown pair of shoes I hardly ever wore. So I think Goodwill got one shoe. But then there's also like all these historical things from both my parents, and then all my kids' artwork from the time they were in preschool, and they're now 30 and 26. I feel like I'm the keeper of that legacy, or the family historian or curator or something like that. So that it's a very interesting process. And now we're in this new place, and we're unpacking the boxes, and I really thought I had labeled them clearly. And now I just wrote down things for Joan's office, because I would obviously remember what was in that box. And it's like, can I just put this in the garage?
Well, you get caught with all your details. You know, all those things you shove in the junk drawer. Everybody's got a junk drawer. And I have a feeling some people have more than one junk drawer. And so often what's in there are the things you don't have a set place for, or it doesn't have an organization that, you know, anything other than being in that drawer, which is really not junk. It's just all that stuff that doesn't have more than one, you know, or doesn't relate to something. And all this individuality that's in that drawer. So then you put it in a box and you move it and then you go, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with it? Right. You just keep it in the box. You know? I mean, how often do people just keep stuff in the box? Right. And you put it there, put it somewhere. And then you realize 3.5, 10 years have gone by and you've never gotten into that box. You know, you've managed to do something and then it's there and it's waiting and you don't know quite what's in the box anymore, or, you know, whether it's this treasure or it's going to be this explosion that happens. So interesting stuff.
Yeah. And the thing I find, is that there are energetic ways to handle these boxes. And the other thing is that you can keep the historic things, but you don't have to carry it around internally. And, you know, because I think about, you know, all my children's artwork and all these really cute things that they did and all, and they're not interested now, but they might find this interesting when they have children, or maybe their children might find it interesting. And I can, you know, so I can hold the space for them without carrying it within my energetic space. And when we come back, I have a suggestion or two for some techniques that you can use to handle that stuff energetically. But we have to go to a commercial break right now. So I want to just let everyone know that you're listening to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. And stay tuned because we're talking about consciousness and reopening our boxes after we come back.
Is your soul calling you to do something more meaningful with your life? Do you feel crazy for wanting to quit your secure job? Perhaps you are waiting until you retire to do what you love. Maybe you are too daunted to follow your dream. If any of these match your life, then Joan Newcomb's Purpose and Passion Coaching Program is just for you. In just 12 weeks, you will discover who you essentially are and why you are here. Learn to live as your greater self and navigate with conscious mastery. Go to joan-newcomb.com. That's joan-newcomb.com for all of her coaching programs. Would you like a fresh approach to the challenges you are dealing with? Take a journey into your enlightenment with Janet Barrett. Janet is a subtle energies empath, accessing the field of potential with warmth, humor, and support. She will help you to hear what your inner voice is saying. She will share with you how to appreciate who you are now and offer you new ways to understand and transform your issues. Reach her at www.janetandbeyond.com. That's janetandbeyond.com. Again, janetandbeyond.com. Transformation is possible. You can enjoy new outcomes in your current experiences. They can happen in the blink of an eye.
You are listening to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. To reach our program, please send questions and comments to consciouswithjoanandjanet@gmail.com. That's consciouswithjoanandjanet@gmail.com. Now, back to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet.
Welcome back. You're listening to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. I'm your host, Joan, and I am here with Janet, and we are talking about consciousness and reopening our boxes.
We have plenty of boxes, that's for sure. So, well, everyone, let's just bring our awareness into heart space, because we just we're always operating out of heart state. We just need to bring our conscious awareness to it. And then we can rip and see how this goes. Because I have a feeling a lot of boxes are going to open up. So let's see. Okay, everybody just take a breath. There we go. And just, no matter what you're doing, whether you're listening live and driving down the street or listening to what's going on in the office, that part of you that can hang with us is hanging with us. So if you're on our podcast service and you're listening to us at a different time and place, just allow all whatever to fall away and just notice your breath and notice your heart. Maybe put your hand over your heart and just feel it. If you don't hear it, just feel it. There we go. That's nice. That helps. Just allow yourself to notice yourself. And then just check in with that emotional resonances that are flying around. Don't judge them, just let them be there. And know that you're much more than that. Those are just the flavors and the interesting qualities that life takes. We're not trying to change anything. We're not trying to do anything. We're just being. So we take all the judgment out of it. And so often that will change because you're allowing yourself from a conscious place to experience yourself as consciousness, which doesn't really care. So just notice and then just go a little farther. Inward, outward, direction's not important. Just go to where the core essence of all is. There we go. Into that infinite sea of potential. Warmth, support, non-judgment, grace. Into the stillness and the sacred and the quiet. The bubbly brook. However, because life is present always. And just allow yourself, choose to notice yourself in this way. It's so easy to get caught up in what we're all feeling, especially when we have so many things environmentally surrounding us that are active. And people's emotions are running very high. And they always do, but they're really intense. So take a step back. And notice that difference. And whatever seems so troubling, just notice. Whatever seems so exciting, just notice. That feels nice, Joan. What you got there, girl?
Yes, it sounds. What sense am I using? It feels and sounds very peaceful.
It does. And all that heavy-caviness going out there. This is really present. And it's so easy. Our emotions are so powerful, and we want them to be powerful. Or we don't need them. Well, we have them. So we also have this. And this was there before that was. Because consciousness is present whether you are or not.
One of the things that I feel, sense, and notice when I'm in heart space is suddenly even the boxes themselves disintegrate, but the emotion around it is like, what are we talking about and why are we talking about it?
I told you.
Exactly. And so it suddenly becomes like, well, what's the point?
Whoa, there's something just opened up. Oh, pardon me, Joan. Something just
That's
went
okay.
through.
Just sit back. I'm going to keep talking and you can sort of roll around in your space there.
Yeah, wow.
And what I find is when you can view things as consciousness, then it takes all the drama out of it. It takes all the angst and the little aspect of yourself that feels like everything is bigger than you are. And when you shift to consciousness, you realize that you are expanded, all of it. And then it becomes pleasant, these boxes floating by that are disintegrating or these things that are opening up. It becomes like your approach at the very beginning was a little bit like these boxes are like presents. They're like treasure chests. They're like, it's a surprise. And as opposed to, oh my God, there's the
Black hole.
newspaper from the day my mother died. And
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
my father's diary from 1942 and, these sorts of things of, that seem to be so heavy. And, I do have some techniques for people, but I'm going to hold off until, maybe just before the commercial break or just after at the end here. I'll do that because it feels like we've got a lot more juicy stuff to mine before I get into like what to do about it.
Well, and I think what's really present is my awareness of how energy keeps on giving, right? Energy isn't dead, and it may have a static quality to it, but it's still there. So so the energy that we feel in the memories, in the empowered object that's in that box, what that box represents, whether it's your father's diary or something, it's still holding all that emotional energy there. And so what happens is that we have a sensitivity to that. We're all vibratory creatures and everything is giving off a vibration. And it'll take you places that maybe not where you are. And so there can be this unwieldiness or this unwillingness or this place where you don't want to go. So you don't want to go. So you don't want to open it up. And that's coming from that human perspective. And as you embrace it more from the consciousness experience, you can watch those dynamics, you can experience those dynamics, and also that is the way you're perceiving it. And so as we allow that awareness to be more present for us, the charge, we all hear about charges and electricity and emotions and all that. It kind of sort of separates it out. And that's where we want to be in our awareness, where we want to be with our things. But it's also going to challenge our setup and our stories of how we hold that relationship or that experience. And that's what you have to allow that willingness to go, where to go. Okay. If I open this up, is this going to change the way I regard something? And that takes being present, right? I think so. Yeah.
Yes, because if you think about whether you're holding something, whether you box something away inside you or you boxed something away in the basement, it's historic. You're not boxing future things because they haven't happened yet. And you're in the present moment. You're not necessarily boxing things, though I can imagine you might be packing them to process later. So really, when we're opening boxes, we're opening something from the past, and it doesn't really exist in the present. You get to revisit it. It's a revisitation, but you don't have to go back there. You don't have to be 8, 10, 12, 27 or whatever. You don't have to be the age you were when that thing happened. what happens when we regress with the memory, then we're as powerless as we were when we were a child or we were a young adult with no information on how to function in the world. And that being able to stay in the present moment with all the knowledge and maturity that we've gained by now helps you deal with whatever it is you're unpacking. And then you can have a different choice of emotions with it too. You can be wistful. You can be, you can look at the thing that might have been painful at the time, and you can have compassion for the self that you were, or you can have gratitude because it was painful then, but it opened the door to so many more experiences that you never would have had you not gone through that thing. So that's where they become gifts, like you were talking about, Janet. They become, they're presents for you to be in the present.
Yeah. Well, and I think, so you can open something from a state of innocence, right? And that's the child, and that's, the excitement and all that. And then you can open the box or bag or whatever it's showing up as with more awareness. And that's your story that's opening it up. And how many times did you get a gift from someone and you didn't want to open it? Or, it's labeled gift, or you knew that it was not going to fit. You knew it wasn't going to work. You knew. See, and because you've got a story going on there. And so what you're describing so beautifully is where you just go separate out of that. It's very challenging when someone gives you something and you get all excited and you open it and you go, oh, all right. Another thing to go on the shelf over there from Aunt Martha, whoever it is. And it is, oh my gosh, well, someone was thinking of you, and that complaint, well, you don't know who I am, so you give me something that's a reflection of who you think I am. And there's so much attachment, and you can feel all that. You may not be able to make distinctions about it at the time, but it's how to just hold the grace so that you can open that and go, oh, okay, thank you. Right? And that comes from a place of more sincerity than hopelessness or whatever might be operating at the time. For some reason, that was my tangent.
And it's if you think about the energy of hopelessness or any emotion that is heavy emotion, that is painful or uncomfortable emotion, comes from the aspect of you that is in your physical body and is not the part of you that is consciousness. Mm-hmm. Because when you are operating as consciousness, and like we said at the top of the show, consciousness at play. When you're operating as consciousness, you have a sense of playing in this reality. And then even the most painful thing, you're able to navigate it with a broader sense of awareness, a bigger perspective of what's going on, and you can still have compassion for it being a tragedy or anything like that, but you are able to navigate through it with a greater sense. I always reference back to helping both my parents die in 2013, and it could have crushed me if I felt like my parents were dying. And, I was just there, holding up my end of things. Instead, I saw myself as the midwife, and they were birthing themselves back to spirit. So there was a much bigger experience of what was going on. And it was so interesting when I got to the helping my father was a different story, because I came in kind of at the end with all the family members there having very strong reactions to that process. And, I was aware of holding a much bigger space for it, and that there's a holy aspect of someone leaving their body that screaming and crying over them isn't really holding that space. But my father was an extrovert, so I realized he probably didn't mind lots of people coming in and out of his room at the end. They were just like, please be quiet, And I can look back now and I was, maybe at that point I was really more of the doula. I don't know. But I'm also aware that I'm not the only one in the scenario. Though as consciousness, I am all of the scenario, and that there's other things going on the other side for that. So if you can see yourself in the world today and with whatever boxes are surrounding you, and realize that you as consciousness have created this all down to the smallest detail, including the storyline that you happen to be traveling, or the twists and turns when you change the storyline. And even in finding that box today and opening it up is a creation of you as greater consciousness. And then you can see that box as a gift. You're opening it up. Yeah. You're decluttering your reality. I could launch into a tangent about hoarding, but I won't at this moment. Why don't you talk about it, Jan?
Well, I think what comes to mind is that in our humanity, we don't often notice our little changes, and that the box gives us an opportunity to notice how what was important then, or what had some kind of charge on it, may not be held now that way. And we're constantly making choices. And I know so often it feels like we're in patterns, certainly with energy and dynamics and how the issues and challenges in our lives show up and the joys show up and all of it, because it all winds up being in patterns. But there can be variables in that. And so in your day to day, you don't have an attention to it. So you open up a box now and you go, oh, okay. And it can go. You don't have the same connection to it as when it was put together. And that's good. That's good that you can mark your changes, mark those subtle differences. This is what we're offering, that in that state of awareness that consciousness is, you get to be present to how you've organized yourself. Now, a lot of people don't. They're not present, or they're in distress, or they're in some kind of compromised place. I mean, look at all those people that have had to pack up and get lifted out of water, for instance, and what's good, that's all done in the chaotic place. Usually our organizational skills kind of sacrifice there. And so now we have to bring the water recedes, or maybe the water's staying in places, and we get to put things back, or maybe we don't, because maybe there's no place for them to go back, and maybe there's nothing worth keeping anymore. And that has its own dynamic. And now we've got to get out of the shock of what all that was about and regroup and reorient and reorganize and allow for something new. Maybe we weren't in the space consciously that we wanted to reorganize and regroup and get a new sofa and lamp, but that opportunity has just showed up. And so how to stay present using our skill sets as consciousness to help ourselves. And I think that's really up for a lot of people.
I'm reflecting on staying conscious to help ourselves.
Yeah, right.
And yeah,
go ahead.
Oh, I'm just thinking of a kind of a reframe, but so what I noticed going through this move that we just went through is I would be riding back and forth from the old house to the new house, and I'd be sitting next to my husband, and I would be just contracted in pain. And my natural tendency would be is to immediately use my old meditation techniques for making changes. And I forget they don't really work anymore. They don't work very well. So what I'm simply doing is just churning around the pain. So it's a little bit like having internal boxes instead of opening them up and clearing them. It's you open them up, you move the contents around, and then you close them back up again. So when I remembered to be present as consciousness, it was phenomenal how the pain disappeared and it became effortless. So it would be almost like these boxes were made of styrofoam or light as feathers or something like that. The whole environment within myself changed when I could shift my attention to being as consciousness. And it's a really tricky thing because it doesn't mean disregarding your boxes or disregarding the value of your boxes, because it's like, I am not letting go of my children's artwork from preschool, even though nobody might really be interested for another 40 years.
You,
it has, I'm so attached to it, right? And but when you hold it as a bigger space as consciousness, then it's really not like carrying all that extra weight. You're just carrying you're holding the energetic space, and there's no weight as consciousness.
Well, it's an interesting thing. I loved how you described all that. Is the intention to remove the articles out of the box? Is the intention to keep it boxed? How does the box serve us? We so often describe ourselves as inside the box or outside of the box, as personalities, as energies, as whatever. And how does the box serve us in the first place? And then how to be free of the box? And so what happens when, and we can certainly there's hoarding and those kind of qualities where people are anxious to fill a box. They like boxes and they want to fill it and they want to keep a lot of them, or however they organize their stuff metaphorically. And there's also that quality of, wow, it feels so good to get this stuff out, right? And then it's in your field differently than if it was stuck. And you described so well how angular boxes are. And we're not a box. We're soft. And you move it and you that corner is hitting. It's poking. You have softened in some way where that corner shows up. And the contrast between the two, we may not even notice the box till you hit the box, right? And when you're in consciousness, there is no box. So that is that soft quality. It's not even soft anymore. It goes beyond that because it doesn't have any form, and it's everywhere. So the hardness, the construct, sometimes it serves, and we have no problem with that. And then sometimes they no longer do. And so we go between both inside and outside. And it's an interesting quality there. Have you got that mute button on, girl? Okay. So what do we notice? What do you notice, you listeners out there? But right now in this moment, can you see the box? Can you see the stack of boxes? Can you see those things you never unpacked the last time you moved? Or how many of us keep stuff in a box because we know we're going to move again? And that's an interesting philosophy. So, where are we being present? What would it be like to take everything out of their boxes and see it with fresh eyes? And this is what we're offering in this moment, in this state. Are there some that you go, not going there, or I'll save that for later, or I don't have time for that now? Those are all reasonable, human qualities of how we organize things. And we don't judge any of it. We just want to offer that you can hold a different place in your process. So, what do we notice? Well, Let's see here.
Yes, I
There you
totally
are.
agree. Yes.
Good save.
I lost power, but I'm back. I went to a different dimension, and
Your box broke open.
Exactly, or something got unplugged.
Yeah.
So, but that, those sorts of things happen, and you can, instead of like the world is ending as we know it,
Right.
you can just navigate differently. And I'm thinking about, I'm actually starting to think about things that you can do about, things that you can do when these boxes come up. And the first one is being in present time. So if a box gets opened up or you encounter a box and you can just feel that feeling come along, you can take a physical step back. You can look at the calendar on your phone. You can remind yourself how old you are and say today's date. You can take a deep breath and just be fully in your body. All the things, there's lots of tricks and techniques you can do to not get sucked down that rabbit hole or to approach the experience as the adult you are now. I also think about these boxes, they're like memory boxes, and they'll hold something for you that is from a child part of yourself. And you can now be the parent of that child self. You can be the good parent, not the crazy parent or the abusive parent that you had, but you get to parent yourself.
The champion parent. How about that?
Exactly, because I've actually done that. I've stepped into some time where I was being yelled at the age of 12, and I stood up to the person who was verbally abusing me and realized, hey, you know what? I'm about 17 years older than he was at that time. So, so that can be very, very powerful. Another powerful technique is to imagine that you've got all around you, you've got doors and windows, and to place things into storage spaces, so to speak. You can put things through a window to the appropriate space. So sometimes people don't want to let go of the box, like you were talking about, do you need to go into that box? Can you just put it away? You don't have to lose the information of the box. You don't have to lose the memory of the box, but you can store it in your cosmic archives. Mm-hmm. And so you've never lost that information, but you don't need to have it, filling up the vehicle that you're driving right now. So and the other great thing about doing it that way is you don't have to know where it's going to. It just automatically goes to the right spot. And maybe you don't want to open up boxes. Maybe you're going home for a family reunion and you don't want to spend the entire time being triggered. You can kind of set up an automatic archiving system for yourself so that the pictures will come up and they'll go into the archives. Pictures will come up and they'll go in the archives. Or if they don't need to go into the archives, you can delete those cookies. So you can play that way, and that way it can happen very quickly and effortlessly without taking a lot of time, and you can be coherent to your relatives instead of drooling and babbling.
Well, we're so habituated in our thinking, right? And we get habituated in our feeling also. And, I would invite everyone to walk through your front door. Okay, because the house is a great box and it's a great metaphor. And just notice being awake, looking at it. And is this the place you want to be? Are those the things you want in your room? And Feng Shui being as wonderful a premise as it is, it might just take a realignment within that space. There might, you may really like your box, and we're not judging the box at all. What we're doing is we're offering ways to observe yourself and participate in what you've created. So those things that you've put away, no problem. If they're serving you to do that, that's fine. How often do we get something we go, I can't deal with this now. And that we compartmentalize. And once you compartmentalize, that's the box we're talking about. And there are times when we need to do that, and we do it automatically. And we're not questioning that at all. We're just, what in this tremendous potential that is available to us as consciousness that's showing up everywhere. Our stuff in those boxes is coming out. And so how present do you want to be with it? And how can we still keep the enjoyment, the fun and enjoyment of life there, especially if you haven't had a lot of fun and enjoyment in your life. So
it's a lot more fun being in the present moment. And I know for myself, when I am in the present moment, I'm aware of time and space. So I'm aware right now that we have to go to another commercial break. I want to let folks know that you're listening to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. And I'm your host,
we are listening.
We are listening too, for a change. And I'm here with Janet, and we have to go to a commercial break, but stay tuned because we're talking about consciousness and reopening our boxes when we come right back.
Would you like a fresh approach to the challenges you are dealing with? Take a journey into your enlightenment with Janet Barrett. Janet is a subtle energies empath, accessing the field of potential with warmth, humor, and support. She will help you to hear what your inner voice is saying. She will share with you how to appreciate who you are now and offer you new ways to understand and transform your issues. Reach her at www.janetandbeyond.com. That's janetandbeyond.com. Again, janetandbeyond.com. Transformation is possible. You can enjoy new outcomes in your current experiences. They can happen in the blink of an eye. Is your soul calling you to do something more meaningful with your life? Do you feel crazy for wanting to quit your secure job? Perhaps you are waiting until you retire to do what you love. Maybe you are too daunted to follow your dream. If any of these match your life, then Joan Newcomb's Purpose and Passion Coaching Program is just for you. In just 12 weeks, you will discover who you essentially are and why you are here. Learn to live as your greater self and navigate with conscious mastery. Go to joan-newcomb.com. That's joan-newcomb.com for all of her coaching programs.
You are listening to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. To reach our program, please send questions and comments to consciouswithjoanandjanet@gmail.com. That's consciouswithjoanandjanet@gmail.com. Now, back to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet.
Welcome back. You're listening to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. I'm your host, Joan, along here with Janet, and we are talking about consciousness and reopening our boxes. Are we done yet?
Have we smashed a few? What happens when you move and you find the box that's smashed? Ooh, that always,
Thank you for bringing that one up. So, I have all these boxes with my kids' artwork, but my husband, who's we are both Tauruses, but, he has no attachment to these boxes. Plus, he doesn't read them, and they read the signs on it. So, he was putting heavy things on top of these fragile boxes, and actually, so were the movers. And I'm finding I'm finding heavy boxes of books on top of china. So, so some things do get crushed, and going back to what I said before we went to the commercial break too, is that nothing is ever completely destroyed. It may look like it's gone. It may look like it's lost in the physical here, but it still exists as consciousness. So, that wonderful, delicate, filigree necklace or whatever it is, maybe, but the energy of it, the information of it is always part of the all that is. So,
we can get real attached to our conditions, It's like some people may just be so upset because it's no longer perfect, or, something has a crack. And And for me, I look at history and I look at archaeology and I appreciate how they can find this little shard and you get a whole life there, right? In that shard, you don't need the whole vase. I mean, that's
Right.
nice and that's rare, but that shard has got everything there to it. And so for me, if something would break and I'd go, oh, now it's got history, and I'd glue it back together. My
Well,
husband was like,
I was just thinking about this the other day. What is that Japanese pottery technique where they take broken pottery and they solder gold? So they
oh,
put it together with gold. And there's a philosophy to that where you've taken something broken and you've made it even more valuable. I was thinking about this just the other day because I was reflecting on when I left my first husband and the look on my son's face when we announced it to them, and it broke his heart. And he's 30 now, so that happened in 1997. So, and I was like, oh, I had these feelings about breaking my child's heart, and then I had this image of whatever it is, Roku, or what, I wish I could remember the name of it. It might be something like that. So it's like, well, when your heart breaks, it gives it a chance to expand into something more valuable.
That's really an important remembrance. That your heart, it may feel like it's breaking, but it's really expanding. And, it has more room to be, because we tend to think pretty small. We're really into our objects. We're really into our sense, and how we allow ourselves to use that. It does not have to be the negative that we can go with. So we just want to enjoy doing it and doing it on our time. Well, we need to.
Yes, I have some things that I'm attached to, and I'll let you know what they are. Here's an invitation to go deeper with us and to connect with us beyond the show here. Our website is Conscious Conversations with joanandjanet.com, and there you can listen to the podcasts, to all our previous shows. You can read Janet and my blogs that we put out each week. You can see where our meetups are. Janet has 2 in Portland, and I have them throughout the Puget Sound. I have one coming up this weekend in Tacoma. You can find out about our different sessions. You can also find links to our groups on Facebook, and Janet and I are both on Facebook. Just find our names, Joan McCabe. Oh, it isn't. That was an interesting Freudian slip. Joan Newcomb and Janet Barrett. I'm really curious about that box. And then also on Twitter at Joan and Janet, at Joan Newcomb, and at Janet and Beyond. You can follow us on YouTube. And I didn't get to mention this earlier, but I have a YouTube channel as well. I post my YouTube videos on our radio show's website, so you can catch it all there in one location. I have a meetup this weekend, as I said, on Saturday, September 16th in North End of Tacoma. And I'm also going to be at the Emerald Spiral Expo in Kent on Saturday, September 24th. That's all day long. And I am speaking about Beyond the Law of Attraction, the upgraded techniques for the world today. And I have coaching programs, which you can find out at joan-newcomb.com. Anything else as we're sliding into home, Jen?
Yeah, we have that free conference call next week, September 14th, 7 p.m. Pacific. And join us there, and we'll talk about our boxes and what might be in there and all the wonderful things going on in life. So please join us. And oh gosh, so feels a little more open, do you think, Joan?
Yes, and in the last minute and a half I'm going to put a plug in for next week's show. We have a really fascinating guest that we're going to be talking to. She's coming from Cape Town. She's going to be calling in from Cape Town. I cannot pronounce her name. Memencio. And her book that she's put out is Odyssey of a Healer. And this woman has been all around the world in her healing studies and her healing pursuits. And she has a very fascinating approach to life. It's going to be a very wonderful and rich experience. Please tune in next week, Wednesday the 20th, for that very special interview with the Dr. Mimoso, Miss, you'll find out.
Yeah. She sounds like a fascinating woman. She and I have been communicating on LinkedIn, and her messages repeat to me, and she says, "Oh, the energy is just so strong," and I'm like, "Right on, there you go."
Yes.
Well, she'll add a lot to our field, our morphic field there of the show.
And I want to let to our listeners know we really appreciate you. You add to the morphic field of our show as well. So it doesn't matter. There's no time or space as consciousness. Doesn't matter when you're listening to this. You have helped contribute to our experience today. And we'd like to thank you all for joining us as Consciousness Expressing and Evolving. You've been listening to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. I'm your host, Joan.
And I'm Janet. And thank you so very much, everyone.
You've been listening to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. And thanks so much for helping to co-create the show, no matter if you're listening live or on demand. You energetically contribute to our collective experience. Joan and Janet love to hear from you and invite you to email your comments and ideas for them to explore each week. Contact them at consciouswithjoanandjanet@gmail.com. Tune in next week for another great show, and until then, keep enjoying this wonderful adventure we call life.